one thing that happened this week is just that Ubisoft did not have a good week this week. We could start with a couple weeks ago where they had the issue with them decommissioning all sorts of different games, DLCs, and stuff like that, but we've already covered that. So why don't we get into what happened this week? First, the small stuff. Well, not the small. First things first that we were going to talk about is Ubisoft delayed the new Avatar game that they've been advertising for the past couple of years, and the new Assassin's Creed game that hasn't been announced, to 2023. So the Assassin's Creed showcase, I think there's going to be Assassin's Creed Infinite. I don't think they're going to announce anything else other than Infinite on that showcase that's coming in August. So nothing that way is coming in 2023. They also canceled 4 games, 2 unannounced games. The Splinter Cell VR game that they announced, I think, a couple years back, and the Ghost Recon Frontline Battle Royale game that they formally introduced, I think, about a year ago, and did not receive that good of a. It wasn't received very well. We'll just say. And then after that happened, there's more. Roller Champions, the game that just came out on free-to-play in May, was reported by Jeff Grubb that it was going to be shut down after Season 3. Now, Roller Champions is at Season 1 right now, and the seasons last about 2 months, so that would have been October, November when Roller Champions would have been shut down. That would have made it about a 6-month game after that, citing that the game wasn't making much sales. Ubisoft has later denied that is going to get closed down, but that we will see if that comes true. Zero, Ubisoft's had a rough week.
Oh yeah, they've taken quite a beating. The Assassin's Creed thing, it's not really too surprising to me, mostly because of the fact that just, as unfortunate as it has been, just Assassin's Creed has had a bit of a glut, and that was definitely apparent with the release of this most recent title, Valhalla, because Ubisoft did some metrics, and yeah, just they definitely saw that there was a big drop-off on players after a certain point. And from some of the friends and random folks that have talked about it on the internet, just unfortunately Valhalla just seemed to have just a glut of content, and it was just way too much. And a lot of people ended up skipping a lot of the side quests and just going, you know what, there's just so much to do in this. I'm just going to concentrate on just mainline story, crunch this out, and just be done with it.
Right.
So, and I mean, for years now, Ubisoft had been sort of hinting that they need to try to slow down the Assassin's Creed stuff, because just they realize that there is sort of a bit of a glut right now. So, for me, when I saw this announcement that Assassin's Creed would be delayed into next year, it really wasn't too much a shock. It was just more of a, wow, I was wondering when they were going to finally just come out and say it.
I mean, okay, you mentioned Valhalla. When it first came out, reviews were all saying, yeah, there was way too much in the game to really sink your teeth into, and it became a slog after a while. But let's also be fair. Valhalla has been out for what now? 3 years? Has it been?
No.
No?
I think it was more recent. I think it came out last year.
No. Okay. Let's see who's wrong.
Nope, never mind. 2020.
Okay, 2 years. So we're both wrong. Okay, so my thought on when it originally came out, I was like, yeah, that sounds like way too much. But they've also haven't had a new Assassin's Creed, so that gives people plenty of time to play it and go through the content if they want. And they've had DLCs, so they've been supporting that game. And I don't think, have they had DLC, or have they been doing free updates? I'm not entirely sure.
There is some DLC content for it.
Okay.
But as usual, it's also marred by the usual Ubisoft point system that you have to buy microcurrency and all that other terrible stuff.
Yeah, okay. Well, okay. So there's that. So,
Yeah, so I guess for me, the reason I say it's it really isn't too big a surprise was just it seemed like that the Assassin's Creed games could just use a real and honest true break to sort of regroup themselves and just kind of fine-tune things a little better because in my mind, when they took the break that they did and then came back with fresh ideas for Assassin's Creed Origins was good.
right.
Loved it. Played the shit out of it. And then when we went to Assassin's Creed Odyssey, it wasn't bad, just there was just a lot of filler content and it was just kind of, hey, so let's do a thing, hey, let's do another thing, hey, let's do this other thing too. And just some of the quests just they just felt like a slog back then and I know that they were just they had announced around then they were like, okay, well maybe we'll slow down the pace of the Assassin's Creed game and just maybe try to reformulate things, and then of course Valhalla comes out and it's just kind of a, hey, let's kind of do what we did in Odyssey and just, cram more shit into it. And then of course just you finally have reviewers pushing back going, hey, there's a lot to do in here and not all of it is very fun.
Yeah. It's strange. They remade Assassin's Creed for Origins, and there are some people saying they should remake it again, which I don't agree with. I think they should just pare down they should have like a main thing that they should do in the game, and then some branching quests, but really limit what you're doing. Like focus in on the strengths of the game that happened from Origins and from Odyssey. And then you'd be fine. I mean, or you could have a big game like Valhalla again, but don't have a new game the next year. That was another issue. Like, to go from Origins, the following year go to Odyssey was kind of a chore. So that was also a big issue to some, including me, because the way I buy games is basically when it's cheap enough is when I buy it. And then if it's not cheap and a new game has just came out, I kind of lose interest in getting the game entirely. So, yeah, anyway. New Assassin's Creed is delayed till next year. There hasn't been an announcement for that. Rumor is it's going to be set in Japan. So that's interesting. So we'll find out when that's announced. I'm not surprised at all that not many people care about the Avatar game being delayed. But that has the potential to be a sales albatross around the neck of Ubisoft. I get that the first movie made billions of dollars when it came out, but people who praise Avatar praise the visuals, and that is it, really. They don't like the story, they don't like the characters, they don't want to be in the world. They just love how pretty the movie was. And if I recall correctly, the Avatar game that came out on the 360 didn't do so hot. So I'm really curious as to why they decided to go for a completely new current gen version of Avatar. So I think this is going to blow up in their face, pretty much. They're going to spend a lot of money on good tech to make this game, and not many people are going to be interested. So them delaying the game is not good, which is a sign that it could be in trouble. But yeah, that's a problem. Any thoughts on Avatar?
Yeah, I'm pretty much of the same mind of it just seems pretty, but just does it really have the selling power? I'm just not so sure.
No, it's what made Avatar in the movies so special was how they used the 3D goggles that they gave you in the theaters, and how that enveloped you in the visuals of the movie. But if you if you were like me and you didn't see it in the theaters and you saw it at home, you didn't really like Avatar too much because the visuals are great, but the story and characters are not good. So, I, I myself feel that this is gonna bomb, and it's gonna maybe not bomb, but it will disappoint in sales. So I don't see this working out very well for Ubisoft. Um, they canceled 4 games. We already mentioned 2 unannounced games. We can't really discuss that because we don't know what they are. So if they were unannounced, who cares? I guess. All right.
Yeah, I mean, because just the Splinter Cell game being canceled. It's a bit funny because the Splinter Cell franchise has been on a deep freeze since Blacklist,
Yeah.
and to know that the Splinter Cell brand is pretty much right back in the deep freeze, it's a bit of a shame. Frontline was, at least to me, it just felt kind of like a, hey, we got to get in on this whole battle royale thing too, and because everyone's doing it.
Right. Yeah, and the reception that Frontline got made it sound like either they had to revamp it big time or this was going to get canceled. So I guess it's good that they canceled it so they can work on another Ghost Recon game, but that's going to hurt to work on that. And then with Splinter Cell VR, I mean, are these big companies now starting to shy away from VR? Is that what's going on? Because I thought that even though VR is kind of a niche, that it's still sort of profitable to a certain extent, or are they starting to shy away from it now because it's not the big deal that it was going to be made out to be?
I think it's sort of in the gray area because the Oculus Quest series headsets have been a great entry point for just VR, especially for anyone who just doesn't have a gaming grade PC and then $1,000 to blow on the HTC Vive kit from Valve and everything.
Yeah.
And then, of course, on the sort of intermediate part of the spectrum, you've got PS4 and PSVR, which that is its own bit of kit. And unfortunately, the base PS4 and the PS4 Slim, just they can do all right for most VR games, but there's some VR games that will chug on those 2 particular units. But if you have a PS4 Pro or if you have a PS5, then some of those little chugs end up being completely minimized just from the better hardware. And even still, just even if you were to just roll the PS4 Pro and PSVR headset kit, that's still a good chunk of coin. So, I mean, it's a big investment for the end users to just get all the gear just to get set up for VR, but then on top of that, just games kind of live and die by their reputations. If a game gets a absolutely rave reputation, then yeah, just easier to sell units, but if it's a VR game that doesn't really have any sort of proof that it's a good game, then unfortunately it's asking the users to take one hell of a leap of faith.
Yeah.
And especially if especially with the fact that the Splinter Cell brand has been in the deep freeze since Blacklist, and Blacklist was back in the PS3, Xbox 360 era to boot. So, brand that's been in the deep freeze, you're making a VR game for it. No one knows if it's any good. No one has really openly discussed if they got to play around with a playable build, if it's any good. So it's just very, very hard for just most consumers to just say, yeah, sure, oh, you're charging $60 for this VR game? Okay, yeah, sure, I'll give it a shot. Maybe it's actually pretty good. Just, that's a lot to ask. Just any John or Jane Doe consumer to just drop that much money on a AAA grade VR game.
Yeah. I guess the business of VR is not as robust as I thought that it was going to be.
Yeah, that would probably be my take. That they probably got cold feet, going, "Yeah, that's not money we can risk just gambling on."
Yeah. What I'm surprised of not hearing about at all in these announcements, what's going on with Beyond Good and Evil 2?
I think on social media, the Beyond Good or Evil 2 folks had made a little blurb saying, "Hey, don't worry, game's okay. We're still working on it. Just we're quietly, diligently plugging away at it. So just don't mind us."
This was last shown off in 2017, okay?
Yeah.
Like, at some point, people are going to start thinking something's wrong. Like, either it better be absolutely amazing or prepare for disappointment. And Beyond Good and Evil, even with its with the amount of times it's been re-released, has never been a good seller. So I don't understand why Ubisoft's taking all this money and time with Beyond Good and Evil 2. Like, if anything, to me, that would have been the game to cancel at this point, because you're not guaranteed to get the money back that you're putting into it. And this was literally a Mirror's Edge situation where more people talked about the game than actually bought it. So I don't understand why they're canceling some of these games, but Beyond Good and Evil 2 is still around? That's strange. So
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Just it is the moonshot game. They've promised the moon and the stars to everyone about it. So maybe it's a sort of sunk cost fallacy of,
yes.
hey, we put our chips down on it. We got to go balls in on this, or we got to figure what the fuck to do if we choose to bail out of this.
I will refuse to say that it is still running until I see it. So, God. Anyway, so the last thing that happened at Ubisoft was that Jeff Grubb reportedly said that Roller Champions, the new free-to-play game that came out in May, is being shut down after Season 3, which is around November. Ubisoft has already denied this about a day later. My feeling is that Jeff Grubb is probably right, but Ubisoft is saving face because they want to get as much sales as possible from that game before they shut it down. They may put in an extra season just to stave off the possibility that it may be shut down. But if this has not been doing well, I mean, Hyperspace was a really good game, I heard, that no one played. And they canceled that within a year or two. So I wouldn't be shocked if Roller Champions, if it wasn't making any sales, that it got canned. So, yeah, it's good, I guess, for the people who are playing Roller Champions that Ubisoft said they're not closing it down. But if not many people are playing it, and that's what it seems like right now, is that not many people are playing the game, it stands to reason that a company that is having as much problems as Ubisoft is not going to turn around and shit can the game if it's not making its sales projections.
Yeah, though with Roller Champions, I don't think it'll be just an outright just we're pulling the plug after Season 3. It's probably going to be a situation like Hyperspace where the game's going to just kind of continue on in a bare bones maintenance mode, but the minute that they're just like, okay, it looks like DLC isn't selling anymore, and we can't get anyone to buy packs or anything like that, then, yep, time to pull the plug and call it a day.
Yeah. And this adds to the fact that Ubisoft doesn't have much coming this year. They have the Beleaguered Skull and Bones, which is going to come out in October, I believe. And then the Mario & Rabbids game, which is going to come out, and that's going to do some decent sales because the first one was surprisingly great, and people are looking forward to it. But this is really just a bad week for Ubisoft, and it's been a bad, almost I would say, few months with their numerous announcements, problems with the culture in Ubisoft. Taking down games. I've had it rough for a pretty long time right now.
Yeah, yeah. It's just a real sad shame, just because yeah, there are great games from the studio. I mean, the Mario and Rabbids game, I love to death and cannot wait for the sequel and everything.
Yeah,
So,
I'm the same way.
yeah, there's that. But yeah, just overall, it's just not looking good. And there's supposedly rumors that they might be looking for someone to buy them. I have tried to
Oh
find
yeah.
verification on the rumor, and I can't find anything substantial. So this is just me speculating. So do not take this as financial advice, anyone who's listening. But
Yeah.
yeah, just if there's more traction on this whole Ubisoft is looking for a buyer, then I'm really going to be interested in who's going to want to buy them up.
I mean, if they were paring down and closing down some studios, I would say that it's a possibility. But they're not doing that. They're canceling projects. So I don't know if that's the case, although the rumors have been swirling that Ubisoft has been looking for a buyer. I think it was a private capital firm that was rumored to be buying them at a certain point. But they could bounce back this year if Skull and Bones does really well and turns out to be a really good game, which a lot of people who have played the game said, Not really. That's not you shouldn't expect that." But yeah, I mean, they need to have I guess they need to have a strong year next year, which they may with Avatar and the new Assassin's Creed coming out. But yeah, this doesn't look great for old Ubisoft. So, yep, that's it's pretty rough.